When JBL announced the Club One, I was very much intrigued to see how it would compete with Flagship ANC headphones. Indeed, these are Bluetooth ANC headphones that can be found for a whopping £300 in the UK and at just around $280 in the US. If you're interested in purchasing it, the links in the description below will take you to your localized Amazon store, and also down there you'll find alternative suggestions, including some of the headphones that I'm going to reference in this review. Now, before jumping into this review, if you do have Instagram, I'd very much appreciate a follow. It's at TotallyDubbed, and if you're interested in keeping up with the news or reviews of hybrid or all-electric vehicles, do check out Totally EV. Your support would be equally appreciated. So let's kick things off and talk about what you get in the box, which is quite a plethora of accessories. Apart from the manual itself, you've got an airline adapter and a 1/4 inch jack adapter. Then you've got a USB Type-C to Type-A cable, and we'll touch upon battery life in just a bit. It's got the nice orange color, and it's got the double-sided USB, which is actually pretty rare and it's quite nice to see. Anyway, good touch by JBL there. And then you've got an adapter in terms of plugging it in. So you can see over here, it's a 2.5mm jack to semi-right angled 3.5mm jack, and you've got a inline adapter as well in order to take calls and press and play. And then you've got a more traditional coil cable, which is something that you would use if you are, like, let's say a DJ or someone like that, in order for you to be a little bit more versatile. Then you've got the hard shell carrying case. As you can see, oddly it does close, but it does feel like each time you close it, it feels like a little bit of a stretch. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong over here, but it just feels each time like a little bit of a struggle. Anyway, the hard shell carrying case is nice to see. It's going to protect your headphones. Got a little thing over here allowing you to carry it a little bit easier. So anyway, that's just kind of a good touch. Now onto the headphones themselves. As you can see, the biggest thing is that they can fold in. The thing is, the drivers themselves only go to a certain extent and therefore can't be folded flat, let's say, for example, in comparison to the Bose headphones. Now the thing to note about these headphones, and the thing that kind of struck me straight away when I got them out of the box, is their weight. They weigh 378.5 grams according to JBL, and it really does feel quite hefty in comparison to lighter headphones which weigh around under 300 grams. It just feels pretty heavy on your head. Now furthermore, in terms of that, the clamp force of the headphones is pretty tight. Now while this might loosen up after a prolonged amount of usage, and of course it depends on terms of your size of your head, I felt that the clamp force was a little bit strong. Namely, if you wear glasses, what you'll find is that the rear of the cup feels just a little bit too, I don't know, a bit pressing too much on the back of your ears. But on the plus side, the design of the headphones feels pretty sturdy, and you don't get that kind of creaky plastic you'd get with the Sony headphones, for example, something that's a definite plus point in my books. Now the headphones do adjust. They are quite clicking, quite loud when you click them, but they do adjust in terms of that. The headband is pretty soft at the top, which is nice to see, made out of a nice material, and it's well stitched. And the actual pads themselves are soft as long as you don't wear glasses, as I mentioned before, due to the kind of clamp force. It also means that if you want to take them on runs, you can do so, but just bear in mind the weight that I mentioned before. Now the headphones are very easy to operate. They've got a variety of different buttons to use. So on the left hand side, you've got an on and off button. You've got Bluetooth as well. They do support multi-point Bluetooth connections, which is quite nice to see. In terms of Bluetooth codec and stuff, we'll touch upon that in a bit. And then you've got a button over here which now allows you to enable or disable ANC, and also the ambient aware or talk through options, essentially allowing you to hear your surroundings. And we'll look at that into the app integration just a bit. Then on the right hand side, you've got volume rocker, which also doubles up as skip and previous song if you hold them down, and you've got a play and pause button in the middle, and you can also access your voice assistant. As mentioned, there is a 2.5mm jack over here for you to connect up to the headphones. Now in terms of the battery, these have got a USB Type-C connector, and the actual battery life of the headphones is pretty insane. Now if you were to have no ANC enabled and you just use them over Bluetooth, you can get up to 45 hours. Now if you were to enable Bluetooth and ANC, what you'll find is that figure goes down to 23 hours, which is a massive reduction. And if you were to use the auxiliary input with ANC only, so no Bluetooth, what you'll find is this figure is 25 hours. These are claimed by JBL, and my experiences seem to kind of yield the same sort of results. And now we move on to the app. Now as I mentioned, they connect connect over Bluetooth, as it might be obvious already. You can connect over 3.5mm jack, again, as it might be obvious. In terms of Bluetooth codec, you're limited to SBC and AAC codecs, and I'll touch upon what this actually means in terms of sound quality. But I had no issues in terms of lip sync delays, be it with my Pixel 4a 5G that I'm testing right now, or my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. There was no problems there. Now, in terms of the features that you get through the app, it's actually pretty comprehensive, and I like what JBL have done. You can enable or disable ANC directly from the app. As you can see, it instantaneously picks it up with the headphones. And if you were going to go at the bottom, you can go with the EQs. Now, you've got these preset DJ signature EQs if you want to be lazy, but truthfully, what I would always suggest is set your own EQ. Now, the EQ I've got has got a little bit of a boost in terms of the mid-range. The only problem with doing this is the fact that the mid-range does sometimes feel and sound a little bit artificial with this respect. So I actually preferred listening to my music with the EQ disabled. Your mileage may vary, you might want to tinker around with the EQ, but what I like about the EQ settings is that they're very comprehensive. Look, you can see you can adjust any single frequency band to your heart's content essentially, and while it's not responding properly on video, but you can see what I mean. It allows you to adjust it, and you've got really clear indications of low, mid and high, and I really like what JBL have done over here because it makes it very easy for people to kind of also learn a little bit about audio frequencies and what effect they do. Now, you've got the smart ambient mode, which I mentioned before. You can see the two options. You've got ambient aware, talk through. They do different functionalities. I preferred ambient aware, but it just depends what you prefer, and you can access that by pressing the button, as I mentioned on the headphones before. And then in terms of the settings of the headphones, you can enable auto on and off. You can enable a voice assistant, so yes, you can access your voice assistant over here and set it up through here, and you can check for the firmware. Right now I'm on V1.9.0. So now let's get on to performance, and let's kick it off with call quality. So everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the headphones. Now, what I'm going to do is compare it with my Bose NC700s, and to give you an indication of how it performs with environmental sound around me, I'm going to play my friend's song. It's from Priya. It'll be down in the description below. And this will be playing through my bookshelf speakers, which are placed right in front of me. So that's why I'm facing away from you guys now. And it's straight in front of me. So now I'm going to go quiet. And so now I've paused Priya's song, so hopefully you heard there that it does a good job at cancelling out the environmental sound when there is some sound, in other words, like let's say music playing in the background, but it doesn't do as good of a job in comparison to the NC700s. And that's because the NC700s do a slightly better job, not just in terms of my voice reproduction, but mainly in terms of cancelling out noise around me. So now I'm going to play Priya's song in the same volume as it was, the same setup, just different headphones on with playing through my bookshelf speakers. And right now I'm speaking while her song is going, and now I'm going to go quiet. So there we go. So that was the differences, and hopefully you were able to pick that out, and the headphones kind of portray my experiences from what I heard in terms of their recording call and call quality. In a nutshell, what I'm trying to say over here is the JBL Club One do a fantastic job, although they're not as good as the likes of the NC700s, which are still reigning supreme, very much like the Jabras in this domain. Now, call quality aside, let's get on to noise cancellation. And here I was very much intrigued to see how it would compare with flagship headphones. Now, I can tell you straight off the bat, unfortunately, the Club One do not compete at that top tier level. While these will be better in noise cancellation in comparison to, let's say, the Sennheiser Momentum wireless, I think it's the Wireless 3, whatever they're called, they are better than those type of headphones. There's no doubt about it, and they're better than mid-tier headphones. Let's say the Philips, I think it's PH905 on top of my head. I can't remember what the model name is, but they're better than those type of headphones. But in comparison to flagship headphones, they just can't stand any sort of competition. So the Bose NC700s, the Sony WH-1000XM3s. I haven't tried the XM4s, but I've read online that they are even better than the XM3s, and even, let's say, the Nuraphone headphones as well, which have got passive and active noise cancellation. So in this respect, the Club Ones are decent, but given the price tag, I was actually expecting a lot better, and unfortunately that's not the case with the Club One. So you should set your expectations in this respect when it comes to noise cancellation. But on the plus side, the sound quality representation of these headphones is pretty competent, whereby they compete with the likes of, let's say, the Sony and Bose headphones, and in fact beat them in certain domains. So let's go through the sound frequency range and also give you an indication comparison with some of these other headphones. Let's start off with the sub-bass tones. You get a nice prolonged extension at the low end, and you just get that sort of meaty feel, specifically if you're listening to R&B and dance music. In comparison to, let's say, the Bose NC700s, which sound really tame in this department, the Club Ones really do come out on top. As for the mid-bass, it's pretty tight and controlled, and you do get a quite hefty hump in terms of the sound, like bass in your face, while you're listening to these headphones. So in comparison to, let's say, the Sennheiser Momentums, these have a more forward-sounding mid-bass tone, and of course you can EQ it, as I mentioned before, but in this respect, and even its default configuration, it just sounds just a lot more competent in this respect. As for the mids, they are forward sounding, and this took me by surprise because JBL's sound signature usually is quite recessed and kind of V-shaped sounding, given that kind of fun sound signature. The Club Ones, however, do have much better mids, and in this respect do stand out in comparison to the NC700s, which are very forward mid-sounding headphones. So the Club Ones do a fantastic job in this domain and put the Sonys completely to shame in the mid-range department because the vocals just come out far better on the Club Ones. In comparison to the Sennheisers, however, they're not quite up to scratch, whereby they do still sound a little bit pushed back, and the Sennheiser are still the dominant headphones in this department. As for the highs, they extend really well. They might be a touch sibilant for some people, but you can EQ that, and given the fabulous app that JBL have provided, it means that you can tailor it to your liking. Again, in comparison to the Sennheiser, I don't think it extends as well, but they're pretty much on par, depending on sort of your EQ setting. As for the soundstage, and this is often the case with Bluetooth headphones, I found that they're a little bit closed and condensed, and this is not too much the case with the Club Ones, although they're not as airy sounding as, let's say, the Sennheiser Momentums or the Nuraphone headphones, for example, which do an excellent job at instrument separation and width and depth. Again, the Club Ones do a good job, but they're not quite at that level. Still, in comparison to, let's say, the Sony headphones or, let's say, the Bose NC700, they compete at the same level by providing a good kind of overall width and depth in terms of the instrument separation. So hopefully that makes sense. If you've got any questions, ask me down in the comment section below. Now, the biggest thing which does put me off about these headphones, and given the price tag of these headphones, is the fact that very much like the Bose headphones, they support the SPC and AAC codecs only, which kind of leads itself a little bit disappointing, because if you compare them to the Sennheiser, Nuraphone, or let's say the Sony headphones, which go up to the LDAC codec, it means that you're not getting a loss over Bluetooth, and therefore if you want the best quality sound over these headphones, you actually have to wire them in, but that kind of defeats the point of having Bluetooth headphones, right? So it depends on your use case, but if you want better sound quality over Bluetooth, you will have to look elsewhere, purely because of the overall codec that's on offer, let alone the driver configuration and the actual sound signature you're getting from the headphones themselves. So this all leads me on to my verdict. What do I make about the Club Ones? Well, quite frankly, they're a decent all-rounder, and they're not quite perfect. They've got a little bit too tight of a clamp force. They're pretty hefty headphones as well, so therefore they weigh down on your heads after let's say a couple of hours of usage. And in terms of their ANC quality, it's not quite up to par with flagship headphones. The call quality is decent, although again not as good as, let's say, the Jabras or the Bose headphones. And in terms of the overall sound quality, while they are very competent and are far superior than the Bose and the Sony headphones, they're not quite up to scratch in comparison to, let's say, the Sennheiser headphones or even the Nuraphone headphones, which are a little bit more in terms of personalized sound. So in this respect, the Club One sits at I'm not saying an awkward position, but had the headphones been cheaper, and I say significantly cheaper, say in the UK if they were £200 versus the £300, then I could see myself recommending them as a good alternative to other flagship headphones. However, at the price they come in at, it's quite hard to see myself recommending them when you've got a fantastic array of other Bluetooth ANC headphones out there on the market, which do well in certain domains. So if you've got any questions after watching this review, ask me down in the comment section below. And again, the alternatives in the description will give you an indication as to which headphone might be better picked or better, placed for you in terms of what you want from a headphone. So for example, if you want the most comfortable headphones, the best ANC quality, you want the best sound quality over Bluetooth, or the best call quality, depending on what you want, there are headphones that you should consider, and they all kind of fall on that ANC Bluetooth kind of bracket. So hopefully you've enjoyed this unbiased, unpaid review. If you have, give it a like, subscribe to see more from the channel, and of course favourite and share if you feel that this video will help a family and friend. Alright guys, I've been Totally Dubbed, take care and bye bye.